Welcome to Eureka. I'm Gauhar Raza and you are watching Eureka. Today we have Dr. Gowrishankar with us. Welcome to Eureka, Doctor. Humanity has asked certain basic questions repeatedly. And one of the questions that it has asked repeatedly is that what is the difference between living beings and non-living beings? One of the conceptual models that was suggested by somebody who was very bright probably, or maybe many people, that the difference between living being and non-living being is of the spirit or the Atma. When Atma is there, then you are alive. When Atma gets out of your body, you are dead and the matter disintegrates. Then you have an era when somebody said, no, that's wrong. Every cell in our body is live, is living being. Cells born and cells die. And when most of the cells stop functioning, then you are dead. And then somebody asked the question that where does this information come? And you get into genetics. Now, the question that I would like to pose to you is that what is it that genetics tells us more than what the original conceptual model was telling us? Why did we get into this kind of questioning? We could have been very satisfied. Most of the people in the country are very satisfied. Zinda ho, to Atma hai, Atma nikal gayi, khatam. Right? Why scientists make it so complicated?
So, these are philosophical questions, so I'll try to give an answer in the best way that I can. And the way I would put it is that genetics is only one part of the answer of the question that you have raised. One would put it in the larger concept of biology itself, right, which includes several disciplines. But what one would like to say is that many things which are unknown in the past, humanity has ascribed to higher order beings and so on. And then as our understanding has grown, this unknown concepts are becoming smaller and smaller. Not that they are less important, but they are not as big as they were in the past. So today, what is known, if I were to say it, is that a large part of our understanding of life can be explained on the principles of chemistry and of physics.
Right.
So in other words, disciplines of science which were considered to describe inanimate objects can actually be used to describe living beings as well. Still unknowns are there. For example, the greatest mystery today is that of consciousness, of thought, of human, with the ability to self-introspect and so on. We don't know the answers, and it is possible for someone to say that is where the soul is, that's where Atma is.
So Atma has been shrinking to that level,
but
where the unknown is.
People think, right, and the belief of scientists is that even that can be explained if we try hard enough. But this is the kind of mysteries that we have.
But the genetics that we are talking about, which is the latest understanding of human beings, and it emerges out of the evolutionary theory of biology, that things have evolved over a period of time. They were not born, human beings were not born out of head or leg or stomach of somebody, or it was not created in one day by God. So the understanding has been changing. Now today, what do we understand by DNA and how do we go about locating DNA of a living being? That's a mystery for a common person. What are scientists doing in the laboratory?
So let me start again from this concept of biology and where genetics fits into it. So I said biology is our attempts to understand the basis of how living beings function and and the way they reproduce and so on. The discipline of genetics within biology is the understanding of how things are encoded, right? So basically, genetics refers to a code, and this code was initially unraveled by two people in about 60 years ago. And since then, we have been understanding more and more out of it, right? So that was the molecular deciphering of the code, as it were. But the principles of genetics go back 150 years,
Right.
right? So the concepts that how are in an abstract sense, how are traits
When we
of a
started
parent.
understanding that how the mother and father's gene influence the progeny,
Exactly.
and we tried to develop the mathematical model.
That's right. So that was
based on
so
that.
the abstract entity of what was happening was elucidated by Mendel 150
Right.
years ago. But the molecular features, which is what I said, the chemistry behind the biology
Right.
was unraveled 60 years ago. And that was this molecule called DNA. It is simply a chemical molecule. We can actually keep it in a test tube, just like we can keep methanol or urea and so on. So it's a chemical molecule, and the structure of it is known. We know how it forms chemical bonds. There are covalent bonds and non-covalent bonds. But what is most interesting in it is how does this chemistry underpin what we know of you and me and of the butterfly and of the ant and so on. So it underpins all of this, and that is what has been found out in the last 50 or 60 years, and is really the most exciting phase, as I would say, of biology, which is continuing even today.
For a common person, common citizen of the country, who does not understand the chemistry and physics and biology and these three disciplines merging together to form what is known as today genetics, for him, what conceptual changes this discovery brings about, in your opinion? I would like to give an example. That one is that we, all of us, all human beings, have common origin, is one. Earlier it was understood that those who have white skin are different from those who have got black skin, and those who have got colored skin are different from black skin, etc., etc. This is one. But what else does it bring about?
So
For a common person.
for a common person, the way I would say it is, so let us take human examples.
All of
for
us have
example.
are born from Africa.
Right. That's
This is
that's,
one
that's
conclusion.
that's the understanding from evolution.
Right.
But if I want to give an understanding of genetics and inheritance, right, I think
Right.
it is common knowledge that that a child has the features of one or the other or both of the parents and so on. But what is not so common knowledge is how traits can disappear, as it were, and then come again. And this was basically what Mendel found. So I can have
Right.
two parents who are blue-eyed, right, and yet the child can be brown-eyed, and the grandchild will again be blue-eyed. So where did the blue eye disappear in the child, right? That is the concept that came up as what is known as dominant and recessive genes.
Right.
And so that was the abstract concept of the gene and of genetics. What Watson and Crick found was how you can explain this in the form of the molecules of DNA. What that says is that the DNA actually has is one molecule but has two halves. One half comes from the father, one half comes from the mother, and consequently you can get traits that are inherited from the parents.
Yeah.
But because they come in two parts, you can sometimes get a trait seemingly disappearing to come again in the next generation. So I think that's the molecular
We have
explanation.
developed a much deeper understanding of how our body functions, how diseases affect us, and how things happen as we go along from one generation to another generation, how evolution takes place. We'll keep discussing that. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. You are watching Eureka. Dr. Gowrishankar, we were discussing how the evolution takes place and how gene and its mutation at times contributes to development of new species. My question would be a very simple question, which was posed to me by a Babaji in a television discussion. He said, you cannot say with confidence who is your father. How can you even talk about God? I was taken aback. Can we with certainty say, who is my father?
This is a very easy question to answer if this were a quiz. The answer is, with certainty we can say yes, we can say who is the father. These are the developments that...
How do you go about that, doing that? Because that is what precisely you are doing, identifying the gene and also helping the law to catch the right kind of criminal.
Yes, so this was, what I would say is that the theory that this can be done was known for a long time, but reducing that theory to practice has happened, I would say, in the late 80s or the 90s, right? And since then, it has become very common and easy to practice. So what this says is that, as you know, all humans are different from one another, right? And why are these differences there? Yes, in terms of features.
Appears.
And these are all encoded in our genetic material. So clearly, the genetic material of you is different from that of me. Although we are what I would say 99.9% identical, right?
Right.
Because even though we are different from one another in our features, of course, we are both humans compared to a chimpanzee or to a donkey, right? So in that sense, we are sharing many features. So the question has been, how do we look at that 0.1% difference that can distinguish between you and me? That is point number one. The second point is, of course, even that 0.1% difference is that which is inherited from our parents and transmitted to our children, because that is how it works. So clearly, if we can look at the genetic material of one individual and that of his child, we will see more similarities between them than between another unrelated individual. And using this concept, right? You can actually say who is the father and who is of a particular child. Reducing this to practice has been the work pioneered by a person from the UK called Alex Jeffries, and has now come into a discipline called DNA profiling. And I am the director of the institute which does this work.
So what is this DNA fingerprinting all about? How do you go about doing the research on that? And how do you find that this drop of blood is my blood and not someone else's blood?
Right. So as I said, the genetic material, of course, is very, very large. But there are certain positions in the genetic material which we call as hypervariable, that are more likely to be different across unrelated individuals than they are likely to be related. So if we can identify such regions, then if two individuals have the same feature at that position, they are likely to be related, right? Okay. Now we don't do that for one, we do that for 17, 20, 25 different positions. Now the probabilities build up. So we may be unrelated, but for one position we may have the same feature.
Right.
But if we do it again and again and again for 25 positions, the likelihood that two unrelated individuals will share the same features across 25 now becomes vanishingly small, that we can tell in a court of law that these two people have to be related. Right? So that's the way that we...
That is the way you find out.
So we do it for multiple positions, and for each position there are multiple variants available in the population. Therefore, the likelihood that two people will share it is very, very small unless they are related to one another.
And this is accepted today as evidence in the court of law.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And that has increased your work, because you move from doing pure science to applied science, which is helping society to enforce law. So how does that happen in your laboratory?
So, there are different models by which, so this we call as a service delivery, right? Okay. So the
service
ability
delivery has become
to the courts
a part
of law and to the police agencies. So one can have organizations which are purely involved in service delivery. One can of course have organizations which are purely involved in teaching and research or only research and so on. By a happy coincidence, my organization has been set up to do both research and service delivery. But this coincidence in retrospect has turned out to be a very, very good thing, because each activity is enriching the other. We feel that a service delivery alone organization may actually get into a rut, right? Or there are temptations that can occur and so on. And that is taken care of because individuals are also involved in research and talking to people, generating new ideas and knowledge, which keeps them on a path where they are doing both. Right. So
there are two issues that I would like you to reflect upon. One issue is that without science, even law cannot move in today's world, in 21st century. That is one. But the delivery system that you are talking about cannot exist for a long time and will become probably stagnant water, stinking stagnant water, unless and until it is backed by research, which is moving at a very fast pace in today's world. How do you react to this kind of situation?
So to talk about the first part, that law without science is not a good thing in the 21st century. I cannot overemphasize that point. And I think, but if we look at the Indian situation and you look at the Indian Evidence Act, still eyewitness evidence is given more credibility than forensic evidence. And
right.
The judges of the highest courts of the land are in fact talking about changing this scenario, but we have to even change the mindsets of people, right? And move more into forensic evidence based determinations of guilt or innocence than eyewitness based evidence, which is what is happening today. Right. So I would completely agree with you on that. As to the second point about the need for research along with service delivery, that's what I'm talking about. You see, at the moment, we look at various services being delivered in the country that have an underpinning of science. So we have forensic science laboratories that are working in forensic science. We have hospitals giving patient care, right? We believe that in all these instances, an additional component of research will actually improve both the service delivery system as well as be able to attract very good people into the organizations.
From wherever,
That's
various disciplines,
right.
etc. You have been given all kinds of awards, right? From INSA Young Scientist Award to Young Scientist Award from INSA and CSIR, and then Bhatnagar Award, which is the equivalent of Nobel Prize in the country. But you have also been given the highest award of Padma Shri. Which award did you value the most? I've been asking this question to every scientist.
Right. Maybe I should ask you what their answers were. Right. So I
won't tell you. This is your answer that we would like to listen to.
I would say that I wouldn't say that any one award was really more important than the others. I have perhaps one becomes more philosophical as one grows older. The awards have certainly been important for me to feel that the community of the country is recognizing
first the scientific community, and then community at large,
right, and so on. But at the same time, I should say that what really excites me is not so much the awards. It is, for example, just last week I have drafted a manuscript where I have written some ideas of mine, right, and I sent it to 3 people across the world and said, these are new ideas, what do you think? And they come back and say, so the way I write it is, please criticize it, right? Because that's the way that we say it.
That is the way science is done.
And they say, yes, these are ideas that we are, that we would like to debate with you. But in general, this is a very, very nice concept. That excites me more than any of the awards. It's what we call peer recognition, right? And I think that's...
And then you hit a bright idea,
which
is recognized by your peers.
I would say that all our work, you see, you are also associated with research in many ways. in all our work, I see that we are no different from the explorers of the past who were identifying new lands. Every day that we spend in the laboratory, we are not doing anything that somebody else has done before. Please understand that, right?
Right.
If we are doing something which somebody else has done before, we are not doing research,
Right.
and that's the excitement of this entire field. And so
It's
sometimes
probably the same kind of excitement which a painter will get.
Exactly,
A
exactly.
singer will get.
Exactly.
Or a story writer will get. Scientists are normal human beings,
Right.
but they don't do normal work.
So
they do something
that's the
exciting.
way. That's where we are differing from what I would call the service sector, right? So the service sector. Let's leave out the hospitality sector. Let's look at the professional services. The engineer builds a bridge. The doctor treats a patient. But of course, every patient is different from every other. But this excitement of research doesn't come in there, where you are saying that this nobody has done before, and I don't even know what the answer is going to be.
What message would you like to give to the younger generation? Because Eureka doesn't happen like it happened in olden days. Today, Eureka happens through extremely hard work and over a very large period of time, as you were saying.
So the message I would like to give to the youth, particularly the people who are in college and schools and so on, is the following: that we belong to a cultural milieu, right, which is different from the cultures of the West or of China or of Japan and so on. And we have plenty in our culture to be proud of, right? The affection that we get from our parents, the joint family systems, our weddings and our entertainment and so on. So all of this we should cherish. At the same time, the same culture puts certain pressures on us as individuals to conform, right? And if you are a bright student, you are consciously or unconsciously told to pursue a certain path which others perceive is in your best interest, where you will be satisfied, you will be successful, you will have all the money that you want to have a comfortable life, right? But please listen to your mind, right? This is the message that I have. Look at what your interests are. Are you interested in sport? Are you interested in art? Are you interested in journalism? Are you interested in science, right? And try and pursue that. There is success possible in every discipline.
Every discipline.
But there is enjoyment available in only that discipline which suits you. Keep that in mind and do your best. That's the message.
Read your mind, pursue your own interest, not the interest of the parents, not the interest of the teachers or society at large. You have to decide what future do you want for yourself and for your country. That is the message Dr. Gowrishankar is giving us. We'll come back next week once again with as outstanding personality as Dr. Gowrishankar is. Thank you very much for being with us.
My
It
pleasure.
was
Thank you.
Great pleasure.